Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here with you this morning with Cheryl and Kate, and welcome back for the beginning of the next semester. It's not lost on me this morning that we are having the coffee break on the morning of the inauguration, and I just wanted to spend just a second to just remind us, I think, of all of our role in creating a civic-minded populace and civic-minded leaders who will help our country move forward, and that we should take a minute today to hopefully be able to celebrate today the peaceful transfer of power in our country. And so I want to thank you for joining us this morning. It's a lot going on at the university. I know we have a very important semester coming up in front of us to continue the momentum that we got from last fall. I want to walk through several things. I'll start with the pandemic and the three parts of the pandemic that I wanted to address this morning. First has to do that you should have received late last week and also yesterday information from HR about the new testing policies. And Melissa Nash and the team at HR have done a great job of putting that together. And it's important to read that. I know if you remember back to the fall, it took us a week or two to get all the kinks out of the testing policy, and we had a ton of questions to get started and things that we just couldn't predict. And as we got through a week or two into the semester, things were going very smoothly. We're going to have a similar thing today, this semester. There's a lot of moving parts here, and as usual with the pandemic, the information comes very late to us, and we've purposefully waited as long as we can to make sure we can get you the most accurate information we can. Please know there's going to be there could be a few things that we have to adjust as we go forward. But the biggest changes that I want you to be aware of, obviously, are that we are now having testing for everyone who comes onto campus, as opposed to just our residential students. That includes faculty and staff. It also includes testing sites at the locations in Sheboygan, Manitowoc, and Marinette. I'm really happy that that is now happening. It's something we struggled with last semester, and I'm glad we're able to get that solved. So the testing, please read carefully all the information from HR. If you have questions, please email HR or to your supervisor, and we'll make sure that we sort out all the specific things about the testing that we're going to be doing. It's the key to keeping us safe. We know that from last time. We know that it's vital, especially given what is happening with the pandemic right now, that we're able to maintain the things we know that keep us safe, like social distancing and wearing a mask and good hygiene. But to prevent an outbreak, that testing is really crucial that everybody participate. And so I appreciate all of your attention to that. Secondly, I want to let you know that our surge testing site that we started last fall, the federal funding for that has run out, and so that will end on Friday on our site. So the public testing that we're doing will end on Friday. I want to thank Susan Garrett Robinson, who has literally spent the last 3 months or so every day in the Widener Center making sure that that has run smooth. And it's been a great service that we've been able to do for our community by having those tests. And as a result of that, we're also now transitioning to having a vaccination site, which opened on Monday. We're really proud of that. A couple things that I want to let you know that are important to understand is that first, we are actually not the ones who are controlling who gets vaccinated. Okay, so I know it can appear that way because it's on our campus. What we are doing is that we are providing vaccination sites on our campus in Sheboygan, which will open in a couple weeks, and also in Marinette, which should open hopefully about a week after that, for the community to get tested through Prevea. Okay, and then again, as a result of our partnership with Prevea, we're able to make that happen, and again, do what a university should be doing, which is to be a community resource to make our community better. And hopefully in this case, stronger and healthier and quickly in this case. So very excited about what's happening with that. Also really proud of everybody who worked so hard to get that to come to fruition. The campus literally put up a vaccination site within a week, and it'll be one of the largest that are around. We'll be moving up to 1,000 or so vaccinations a day in the coming weeks, with the eventual goal of 20,000 vaccinations a week happening on our campus. So please be aware of that. You'll see some extra traffic, but it's really amazing what's happened to our East-West Gym and the Crest Center, and it's quite a sight to see. Hopefully, one that we can close down as quick as possible, and that would mean the pandemic has moved along. So thank you for all of your attention to that as we go throughout the beginning of the semester. The second thing I wanted to talk about is that we're working really hard as academic leadership and as leadership of the university to think beyond the pandemic. And so this is vital that we're pushing towards the idea that we have hopefully one more semester that is going to be really difficult for us as we move into the summer and hopefully into the fall with the vaccinations occurring. Hopefully we'll see a decline in the pandemic. That's obviously our hope. In which case we need to start thinking about what life looks like after the huge surge that we've experienced. I want to remind you that we announced late last semester about our strategic initiatives, strategic priorities that we'll work on for the next 18 months, and welcome you to submit proposals for that. Those will be due on January 29th. For our leaders to look at. We're already getting some really great ideas coming from faculty and staff about things they'd like to see happen. Obviously, we won't be able to do all of it, but it's a great way for us to hear from you and for us to be able to keep in mind all the great ideas that are happening on our campus. And just a quick reminder as we go through the semester that part of what we're trying to do here is to really think as you go through your daily work how you're tying into these 6 priorities and how those 6 priorities can help make the university stronger, our community stronger, and be a better place for our students to learn. So first and foremost, everything that we do at all times has to be based on student success. It's everyone's responsibility. Everyone's responsibility is student success. And to please remember that as we go through this semester and all semesters. Second is to continue our work in inclusivity. And I would say that everyone's job is also to provide a more inclusive environment. Everyone's job, just like in student success. And in my opinion, those 2 topics are really intertwined, right? They're the same thing. But those are 2 very important things that we'll need to keep working on for the next 18 months and far beyond. Third is digital transformation. I'm very excited about the work that we started in this area. I want to thank Paula Ganyard, Susan Grant Robinson for Cheryl for all the work that they're doing to start to bring this initiative to life. We're compiling an amazing amount of data about what's going on campus and ideas we can use to move forward to help make the university a place that our students can recognize in having digital skills that they will see when they enter the workforce. Also ways for us to make our work more efficient, hopefully to improve the quality of your experience as faculty and staff while you're doing your job. Next is sustainability and the environment. I'm also really happy with the work that's happening. David Volker, John Arndt, and others who are working on this. There's a lot of great work that's occurring here, a lot of exciting things that I think are going to happen in the future to help us sort of reclaim the title of EcoU. And it's a big priority that we need to really work on, and really proud of the work that's happening in so many parts of our campus to make that go. Next is community connections and fundraising. Obviously there's a lot of effort going into this as well, and as I'll keep mentioning, the key to our success moving forward is not how competitive we can be, but how collaborative we can be. And I'm really happy to see us reaching out and working with so many places across our region and beyond to form partnerships, to work with people that have mutual interests, to work with other universities, other colleges, other educational institutions, to think of the holistic experience that we have to provide for our region for all of our students at all ages. And I'm pleased with that work that's going on. And finally, the work that we need to do to put athletics and the Widener Center on a sustainable path moving forward. So the major gateway to the university for most of our region is through either athletics or the arts. and we need to be strong in both of those areas. And the way that we can do that is by really being proud and having a successful D1 athletic program, and by being a beacon for the arts in our region. Those are two important things as in the list of priorities that we'll work on over the next 18 months. I also want to shift then to tell you that yesterday with the cabinet we had our we did a retreat in the summer, and we did one yesterday as well. They're weird to do online, but we spent 3 hours together on the computer, and I asked the cabinet to read a book over the break, and I want to talk to you about that book just for a second. It's called Academia Next: The Futures of Higher Education. It's by an author. He's actually a futurist, which is a funny word, but that's literally his job title. His name is Brian Alexander. He's of no relation, but it's a really important book. And if you have some spare time and want to understand and think about all of the pressures and opportunities and things that are working in higher education now, and the possibilities for where it can be going forward, I encourage you to take a look at that. Again, Academia Next. The other book is a little older, but I think is really great to look at, is by Nathan Graw, and it's called Demographics and the Demand for Higher Education. And I encourage you all also, if you're interested in reading any of those two books, to check that out. And we'll send out an email with those so you can see the titles. But if you have a minute and want to learn more about what's happening in higher education, that's a good way to do it. Last, I want to talk about our partnership with Microsoft and LinkedIn Learning. I'm very excited about this. We have just started the process of bringing this partnership to life. We have LinkedIn Learning in particular talking directly to Linda Peacock Landrum in Career Services, to Melissa in HR, to Caroline in Cattle, to Paula in IT, and to Carrie in Alumni, about all the ways that those aspects of our university can leverage the partnership to help move what they're doing forward. I also want to urge you that there are literally tens of thousands of classes that you can take for free on LinkedIn Learning. We're working to be able to get that to be part of what the culture of how we do professional development here. I know one of the big comments I've gotten since I've been here is the lack of professional opportunities for staff. And this is a really important way that we can instantly fix that problem, to give you credentials, to give you badges, to find ways that you can really use this as a way to really build your skills, to keep your interest in your job and your professional enjoyment, and to grow with the university for all faculty and staff is really, really important to continue to grow. If we're in the business of educating, we should also always be learning ourselves. And the last things I would say is that I'm also very interested in that we're going to look to use this tool in the coming semester for ways as a campus for us to sort of take common trainings or common learning opportunities. And we did last semester in inclusivity. We're going to look at an array of options that we can send out this semester, hopefully in the coming month, that we can use for all of the university to have some options to look at on ways that we can all professionally develop together. Lots of other things that I see that could work in this partnership: opportunities for open educational resources, ways to assist us in our digital transformation, countless ways that we should be able to hopefully be able to use these tools. It's very exciting for us to be able to do that. So with that, I'm very excited now to turn it over to Kate, who has a couple of things also to talk to you about, and then we will switch over to taking questions. So Kate.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to talk about two things. So first, our enrollment, and then second, our fall strategy for courses. So for the enrollment, things are looking promising. We are up 199 students having registered in this past week. And in comparison to last year at this time, we are up 130 students. So that was a whole lot of teamwork between academic affairs and student affairs coming together to really reach out to students, encourage them to register. You know, as Mike said, student success is everyone's job, and so I think that this is a great example of that, of really showing that teamwork and what we can do when we all work together towards that common goal. It's not without a little bit of some negative news there. So if you look specifically at the number of credits that students have signed up for, we are down. So looking at student credit hours, we are down from this time last year. That is a pattern that we saw in the fall as well. And that basically means that we have more students who are taking part-time status, right? They're not taking a full course load. I think, we're all trying to survive as best we can in the pandemic. And so that's one strategy that students are taking. If you look at that gap in student credit hours from the fall versus the spring, we do see that gap is higher now. So it is about almost 2 times higher of a gap than what we saw in the fall. So there is still significant room for us to grow in terms of students needing to still try to sign up for more courses or more students registering. So our efforts are definitely not over as of yet. But all things considered, hopefully at least a spot of some promising news here as we get closer to starting the spring semester next week. The other thing I wanted to talk a bit about is our fall strategy for courses. So for our fall strategy, as Mike said, we are seeing this spring semester as kind of our last COVID semester. And so we are excited for our fall to be able to offer much more in person than what we have been able to during this current academic year. We are looking forward to having our regular course caps, feeling confident that we will be in a good position in terms of the vaccine distribution at that point. So what I want us to think about, though, is to not simply replicate, copy and paste our fall 2019 schedule. And so I wanted to kind of talk through the rationale for that. So while we are excited to offer more in-person classes, I think that we have discovered and maybe even reinforced through the pandemic that we really do need to continue and expand our online and distance ed offerings. And so talking through that, when we look at our enrollment trends, our online courses fill faster than our face-to-face offerings. So to me, that is one good data point to indicate that there is that student interest, there is that student need in pursuing online and distance education courses. We also, if you look at our recent terms that were outside of our traditional semesters, so if you look at both our January term that's just finishing up now, as well as our summer 2020, both of those saw booming enrollments. And again, those are online courses that we are primarily teaching, if not exclusively teaching, during those terms. What I would encourage departments to do is to really have an opportunity as we start the spring semester to really come together, and if you haven't already, to have the discussions as a department and to evaluate your own interest in pursuing, whether it's a major, a minor, certificate. I completely recognize that is going to vary very much across the university, right, in terms of whether that is a good fit. And so I am not saying that we would want all programs to do that, but really to have that as a good focused conversation. If you are interested in pursuing that as a department, we have a great opportunity with our distance education grant that just came out not that long ago. That is going to be due February 8th. So you have some time to be able to think about if this is something that you would like to pursue, and we have the resources to support you if that is something that you would like to take as a direction. If you're not interested in as a department, I guess what I would strongly encourage you to think about, though, is in terms of the general education piece and really thinking about what can we offer in terms of online and distance education with our gen ed courses. This is something where I think we can all think back to what we were doing before the pandemic, and we were really engaging in some stopgap measures. We were holding seats in courses and releasing them at certain dates because we could not meet the needs. We could not meet the demand. If we had opened them up right away, they would fill very close to immediately. And so to me, again, this is why we don't want to replicate 2019 for the fall. We need more of these alternative modalities. So again, wow, this is great news for us to be able to engage in person and seeing the tail end of things, in front of us. I want us to really think about how can we use what we've learned, over this past almost year to help guide us forward to our new future ahead. And so with that, I'm happy to turn things over to Sue and to hear our questions.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to eliminate redundant questions this time, but Mike, I'm wondering if you would start us off with talking about vaccines. There's a lot of questions specifically about that. I know that we're in a position where Prevea is kind of running the show, but maybe we can give faculty and staff an idea. It's kind of come in three parts. When would faculty and staff be able to be vaccinated? Will they be able to get those on campus? And eventually, will vaccinations be required of faculty and staff if they are working on campuses?
Okay, thanks, Sue. Yeah, I think we could talk about each of those. So the first one was, sorry, make sure I got the.
When would we have the opportunity to be vaccinated?
Okay, so I don't know for sure. There are. It's not been officially announced yet, but there is it's very, very likely that we will be in Group 1B, which would be after the current group now, which is Group 1A, which my understanding is people who are over 65 and first responders. So just to keep in mind, that's a very big number of people who are in that group 1A. So I don't have an exact time as to when they'll get to 1B, but we should be next, and we should be in that group of 1B, which would be educators. Now, it's good that it appears that higher ed will get lumped into the group that is with educators, but I don't know how that will be prioritized within that group. Okay, so I'm hesitant to give any definitive answer because I just don't have them. I think we have to wait a little longer to make sure that we know exactly from the health agencies, from Prevea, how they'll want to roll this out. And then the last part, Sue, was about whether or not our faculty and staff could come on our campus to get vaccinated, I think. Is that the other question?
Yeah, will we be able to get them on campus, and will we be required to get them if we're working on campus?
Okay, so yeah, again, I can't think of a reason why you would not be able to get them on our campus. I think we're going to have to work together. I'm not a healthcare expert, so there's all kinds of things that we'll have to work through here to make sure that it's possible that some people will get vaccinated at other sites. The key for us is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. At the moment, my understanding from UW's system is that we will not be able to require vaccinations. And so that's the latest that I have heard, and I will keep listening if I hear any change to that. But we will not be able to require it. We can require the testing, obviously, and I do want to mention one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is that the testing that is on our campus for all faculty and staff is free. So even if you don't have Prevea insurance, you can still come to campus to get the free tests. I want to make sure that everyone's clear on that. I know it's a question I meant to clarify earlier too, Sue.
Okay, thank you. This is kind of a multi-part question. Kate, I'm going to ask you, and they're kind of lengthy, so maybe one at a time. Many faculty who don't feel safe teaching in person until a critical mass of the local population is vaccinated opt to teach online in fall 2021. We are running out of time to alter course modalities, or is this only an option if you or your household are demonstratively higher risk?
Yep, so that's a good question. So for the fall, we are looking at offering a variety of modalities. So I would say if you have any concerns or looking at flexibility in terms of your own household, I would encourage you to talk with your department chair and see what you can be able to teach online, what would be a good fit. As I said, we are hoping to be able to offer a variety of modalities, including more online than we have in the past. And so I think that would be a great opportunity to see how that could work with you and your teaching schedule.
Okay. Number 2 is about vaccinations, and I think we've covered it. Number 3, my research is still being held up by an inability to travel internationally. I'm doing as much as I can from home. Will a promotion committee take this into account?
Yeah, so I really empathize. I know that depending on your research, travel is can be a necessary component. The guidelines that we sent out in the fall do specifically speak to that, so that we have instructed all parts, whether that is chairs, deans, and above, whether that is the actual committees themselves, to look at how the pandemic has affected people and to articulate that. So that I would encourage, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me specifically, but that is covered in that review guidelines.
Okay, and finally, due to the pandemic, we have a faculty mental health emergency on a collective level. We really do. There are reasons why faculty may be unwilling to reach out for fear of being identified as suffering from mental illness. The vast increase in workload, 24/7 workday, and especially for female faculty, vast increase in emotional labor on behalf of students and to some extent colleagues is really unsustainable. What practically can be done about this? And being advised in various webinars to practice self-case is not the answer.
Yeah, so I'll start on the mental health side. So I know this is a trying time, for all of us. And so I, as a psychologist, not as a counseling clinical psychologist, but, I would definitely encourage you to seek out, mental health support, whatever that might look like. I know that we are all struggling and that things are not in our normal practices, and so it is challenging for sure. But to feel free to please connect with who you need to connect with in terms of mental health. In terms of the practical piece, I agree. I think that, both on the faculty side and on the staff side, right, a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed, right? Again, because we don't have those coping strategies that we might have been able to have before, and just, the practical reality that we're living in. So I guess my advice in terms of some practical solutions would be to think about what can you control. So, the question was specific about faculty. So I think as a faculty member, you can control what happens in your classroom. And so this is a great time this week before classes, as you're putting the final touches or maybe the beginning touches on those syllabi, to really think about how did the fall semester go and what changes do you want to make, so that we want to make sure the learning outcomes are achieved for students, but we have a lot of flexibility, right, in how we achieve those learning outcomes. And so I think it can be a good opportunity to reflect and to see how you might want to do things differently. I read an interesting article in the Chronicle lately, actually, on faculty burnout and some great strategies. So I'm not going to tell you to read a book, because obviously that's not going to happen right now. But it is it's kind of almost like a sequel, Small Teaching Online, and Small Teaching by James Lang was amazing. And so I have not read either myself, Small Teaching Online, but some of the at least the highlights in the article talked about what you're able to do and to not try to replicate all those things that you did in person in an online classroom, right? I think that kind of gives us some grace to be able to think about how could we do things differently, what is going to help us in terms of that workload. And so I thought they had some really nice tangible solutions. So it's by Flower Darby. Again, it's just like a 2-minute read from the Chronicle, Steps for Faculty Burnout, super practical, hands-on. I would recommend that, but also, highly encouraging mental health support whenever we can, and really trying to, fight against the stigma by being able to seek that out as much as we all can, since we all need it at this time.
Thank you.
Kate, this is Cheryl. I just wanted to mention one more thing is, I want to encourage employees to utilize their health insurance benefits, which provides pretty good benefits for mental health care. And, I think there's numerous providers, so please reach out to Human Resources if you have questions about that, or call on the back of your card to find out what those benefits are. And that is completely private. So obviously we have the employee assistance program here, but, your healthcare benefits are certainly handled by you and on your own. So obviously we wouldn't have any idea if people are concerned about anybody having knowledge.
Okay, our next question. Are there any alternative testing considerations for second shift employees who can't meet the testing schedule due to other job commitments?
Yes, Sue, this is Cheryl. Yes, we are working on that right now, in fact, and we will be in touch with those specific employees on those afternoon and night shifts very soon. We're trying to coordinate having some flexibility at the CREST Center to do some testing once a week during a small window.
I know we're still refining some of this language, but this question, could you please provide clarification about student COVID self-assessment for spring semester? If students are coming to campus for both class and work, do they fill out the 2 separate assessments each day, or do they fill out one student assessment? If only one, which one?
So I'm not. That's a good question. I understand that this is a very, so I think the question is that if a student is working and also a student, it doesn't occur on the same days. Do they fill out the assessment? Which assessment do they fill out?
Hey, Mike, you got me a step in? Yeah, so Gail and Mark, I know, have been fielding this question as well, and their response has been on the days that students have class and work on campus as a student employee, it is only necessary to complete the student self-assessment. On the days that students work as a student employee on campus, they should complete the employee assessment.
All right, thank you. Okay, sorry, some of these are repetitive, so I'm just going through them. Okay, hello. I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping to get the answers to and be resolved. First is, will employees who do not have the privilege to work from home receive any additional COVID leave pay to accommodate their children that are getting their education from home and the parents have to figure out scheduling? The second part of the question is, will employees who are required to be on campus daily receive the COVID-19 leave pay without using our sick, personal, or vacation time? We who use sick time take the chance of our income continuation insurance rising.
Yeah, no, this is, UW Green Bay does not have the authority to independently grant additional COVID leave. So all of the policies have been enforced at the system level, and UW system has, at this point made the decision not to extend the COVID leave. I know that COVID leave, I think we gave a month leave, ended on December 30th at this point, and no discussions have taken place about extending that at this point. Like the question noted, employees can certainly use their sick leave or other paid leave if they have needs, and certainly, I'd encourage you to contact Human Resources and work with your supervisor on your specific situation.
This one is similar, so I'm going to ask it. With the mandatory COVID testing taking place now, what happens if we get a false positive? Are we able to come back to work with a negative PCR test, and will we get our time off reimbursed?
So if the question is, Sue, again, if they receive a false positive antigen and they have a PCR that's confirmatory that's negative, can they return to campus? I would think the answer would be yes, and just work with Human Resources on that, just to provide that verification, and that shouldn't be an issue. But again, just contact HR. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part was, would they get, because that's probably going to take a day or two, would that time out be reimbursed?
Oh, no, here again, we don't have that authority to extend COVID leave, but certainly using sick leave or other paid leave is an option.
Okay. Zipping through, a lot of them are the 1B questions that you've already answered. Okay. Here's one specifically about teaching. I am scheduled to teach a science lab in person this spring. Because of the reduced seating capacity in the lab, the students must be divided into 2 groups, with each group attending lab every other week. As I understand the COVID testing regulations, anyone who is on campus at least one day every week must be tested every 2 weeks. Therefore, students for whom my lab is the only in-person class and who attend every other week would not fall under mandatory testing. That is unacceptable. How can anybody expect faculty to minimize risk for anybody else by getting tested regularly, which I agree with, but at the same time, take the risk of having potentially infected students in their classroom? As part of a group with increased risk for getting seriously ill from the infection, I don't feel comfortable teaching in person under these circumstances.
Yeah, so I'll start here. Just I think the couple things to remember. I think, you know, in each of these cases, I think it's important on the campus that we work together on these problems, right? So that's a situation that I don't think anyone had thought about. It sounds to me that we can make sure that the students in those labs are still required to get a test every other week. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to do that. Let's confirm that and make sure that as I'm reading the policy and thinking about what was just asked, that the students are definitely on campus every other week, and they're in there for a substantial length of time. I think it's reasonable to say that they would have to get tested. But I think I just want to be careful is you know, we're all working together to try to solve these problems, right? So let's try to do that. The question's a really good question. Let's try to solve that problem together to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and that the class can be taught. Kate, do you want to fill in more on that?
Yes, I'll just say a little bit more in that I'm really excited about our testing protocols for the spring, in that we were only doing that for residential students in the fall, and now we are able to do that for our residential plus our non-residential plus our faculty and our staff. So I feel like overall we are in a better position. We are going to be able to have a safer university in the spring because of those testing protocols.
Okay. I was wondering if anyone has brought up the issues with the grounds department and snow removal. We show up for work at 6 a.m. and the Woodhall lot was not done. Some people waited more than a half hour to be able to park. They also didn't clean out any loading dock areas until 2 or 3 days later. Some of the nurses at the public testing site had to shovel as well, just something that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I'm not aware. Is this from December? The one snowfall in December, I guess. Please follow up with me on your specific questions. We can certainly address that individually.
Okay, can the chancellor speak to the connection or potential connection between the strategic priority of sustainability and our land acknowledgement and relationship in history with Indigenous peoples and their expertise in this area? Is this an important area to build on and leverage, and are we planning in this way?
Yeah, it's the great question, and the short answer is absolutely yes. So we actually, I was very fortunate to be able to talk to the Great Lakes Intertribal Council, and we talked about this very subject, about about our understanding of whose land we're on, about our understanding of the importance of Indigenous voices and how we think about the environment. I will say just quickly, one of the things that I went in the Common Cause talks. I attended the one that was done by David Volker last semester, and this really helped my thinking here about this issue. As we bring the NER on to our campus, I'm very excited about how we're going to involve all of the First Nations in the state of Wisconsin and helping us to have a really holistic NER that honors all these voices. We have our next COT dinner, which is a Council of Trustees dinner, that happens on January 25th. It's not actually going to be a dinner, it's just going to be during dinner time. But our guest keynote speaker for that is Tahasi Hill, who is the chairman of the Oneida Nation. And Chairman Hill is going to speak about the importance of water and natural resources to our area. And so I think it's a really great question that I'm becoming more and more aware of, and one that we definitely want to infuse in everything that we're doing. I'm glad that that David is one of the leads on our sustainability efforts for that priority. So he clearly has an interest also in this subject, and so I hope that we'll be able to really. I hope that we'll be able to do this. That's certainly our goal, and I appreciate that question being brought up.
Provost Burns, when you say that departments should apply for the distance ed grant, do you mean units or programs or both?
I mean everyone. So the way that it's written on there, it is configured all the way from a gen ed unit. So thinking about, you know, a group of first year seminar instructors coming together, or other pieces that fit towards the gen ed curriculum, to a unit, to a program. So we are very open. We are willing to take all comers to the grant.
Okay, and Kate, you mentioned a gap in student credit hours, and you said the gap is 2 times higher than fall. Is that a year-over-year comparison?
So it is comparing our fall 2019, or sorry, our fall 2020 to our spring 2021. So right now we are down 127,706 student credit hours from this time last year. So the gap is about, so not quite 2 times, it's like 1.7 times more right now, this gap, than it was in the fall, the gap for the student credit hours.
Okay, Kate talked about the future growth of online and distance education. Are there any plans to invest in the technology for distance education to bring those rooms up to date?
We are working on that as well. So working on all fronts. So, you know, we are really excited to be able to use our original CARES Act funding to upgrade the 20 magical classrooms, as Cattle has been describing them as. I think it's a nice step, but we've really heard that from you all that we need more interaction, right? Then those rooms, you know, while it's good to be able to kind of send out the material, that doesn't really allow us to do interaction. So we have put together a working group to be able to look at what is a more interactive classroom. What does that mean for our traditional distance ed classrooms that we use with the interactive video, the streaming? So the good news is that we will be getting CARES Act 2.0 funding very, very soon. And I think that this is a great chance for us to think about that from the infrastructure perspective as well. What do we need to invest in to make that be able to achieve our goals?
Yeah, see if I can just add real quick, and Kate, thanks, that's exactly right. And I just want to add that some of this also is the speed with which we're going to have to move here. And I think that I want to say just a minute about this, that you know, we're in a unique spot as a campus, and the speed with which we capitalize on our opportunities and closing our gaps at the moment, where we're in, relatively speaking, a stable financial position. We're at a moment that we really have to build the infrastructure to support the growth that we have experienced, and that is going to be the reason why we made those strategic priorities and put a timeline on them. Is partly for that reason. The reason we submitted that amount of money to be used and put a timeline on it being spent is for these reasons. That you know, we need to make sure that we're having good and thorough discussions about how we're going to move forward, and about how we're going to you know, to make sure we're unified in our approach as to how we go. But we're going to go, and this is important, I think, for the campus to know, right? That we have to agree that it needs to happen, and it needs to happen now, that we equip the rooms properly as best as we can with the resources that we have, and to make sure that we are supporting the mission that we're trying to achieve, and making sure we have the right resources to move forward in these areas.
Great, I've got an update. One of our faithful callers said the book Kate mentioned in Coffee Break, Small Teaching Online, is an ebook the library purchased with an unlimited user license. Simply search the library catalog for the title. A question, I don't think we talked about this. Can and will students be required to be vaccinated?
So I do not believe that we can require that. And so I know that system is right now saying that we cannot. President Thompson talked about this, that there is, in his opinion, I don't believe there's any way we're going to be able to do that.
And how long will the testing requirement for students and faculty continue? More specifically, will it continue into the fall semester? I ask because it is likely that we will not have reached herd immunity by the fall, and/or many people may opt out of vaccination.
Yeah, it's a great question, and the one that we definitely have on our radar, and we will continue to, to make sure we're taking all the right steps, and from all the advice we're getting from all the health professionals on how to proceed. Right now we're really focused on making sure we get this semester off, but it's a problem we're definitely aware of, and one that we're going to have to keep looking at as we come into the fall.
And our non-students, employees or contractors that may be on the campuses more than once a day, do they need to be tested? Example groups are those that rent space for daily use.
So I know that Christopher Paquette is working this out with the groups right now that are in that situation, and I know I think that's the best I could say is that that should get done.
Okay. A question about that student credit hour gap. How does it affect the campus budget? And if we are down relative to last year, is this a concern?
So I'll start us off and then maybe Cheryl can go. So it's good and bad, right? If people are paying more part-time, then it can be good. But so I think that's why we're just trying to just work as hard as we can, obviously, with enrollment. But Cheryl obviously can say more here.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So, we're typically down from fall to spring. That's our typical pattern. We did project that we would be down a little bit more this spring just because of COVID and this current situation with students and teaching online that may be a little bit more challenging for students. So we typically will run our revenue report after the 10-day ad drop date. So we'll do that again this year and see where we land. Fortunately, we have some new federal relief money coming into the university. So hopefully if we have a bit of a shortfall, we can backfill with some of those dollars.
Yeah, and Sue, just really quick, one other thing, there's a very odd anomaly in how the finances work here because of the plateau. And so to just understand that if someone takes 9 credits, financially, I believe we actually do 12 credits, 9 or 12 credits, we actually do better financially than if they take 15 or 18 because of the plateau, right? And so that's the financial piece is very complicated, and that's, I think Cheryl's point's really well taken and Kate's point's really well taken. Our job is to make sure that we keep everybody retained, right, as best we possible to keep them pushing towards their educational goals. We'll wait for Cheryl to give us the actual numbers, which is, I think, important that we go from a point of fact and not try to conjecture too much. But I'm based on what we saw in the fall, I'm not too concerned at the moment about the finances. What's really important right now is that we're maintaining the number of students who continue to stay engaged.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on face-to-face classes for summer of 21?
I think we are, right now we have opened that up, but it's with our current social distancing guidelines. So I think that, historically, at least, we have not had as much demand for our face-to-face offerings during the summer. I think there is a lot of demand for the online offerings. I think we would want to have a little bit more of a sense seeing how the spring goes before we changed the caps on those in-person offerings, but we are allowing in-person offerings. It's just with the social distancing guidelines as we have right now.
Okay. You spoke of arts as one of the high priorities for the university in the coming years. Thank you. Do you have some strategic plan on how you will increase or extend that? And where do the low-income communities fall in this plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple things. Number one, I think we have to get the Widener Center Kelly Strickland has done an amazing job to think about what the Widener Center looks like coming out of the pandemic. And one of the things I've been concerned with since I got to campus is how the Widener Center intersects with campus. That it needs to be a resource for all of our students. It's an amazing place for all of our students, all of our faculty, all of our staff. It should have a much wider reach into what's going on with all the programming we do across campus. You know, I think one of the challenges in the arts always is that the tendency is to want to go it alone, and the economics of the arts demand that you do it together. And same thing in universities, really. And so I think that's one of the first things is to use let's use the resources of the Widener to really help support our academic programming. All the other things that are happening across, not just in the arts, but across the whole campus that need to be presented. We do so much great work that I wish more people had access to. And one of the ways to do that is to leverage the Widener Center. And so I know a lot of great work that's happening with Kelly, with Corey King, and working on that across the campus, and to think about how we can make sure that all students are involved in the Widener. Second is to make sure that the Widener Center itself is that its primary mission is not just to provide entertainment for a specific group of people. And I think Kelly has really done a great job of diversifying the programming, not just diversifying it, but also in making sure that while the programming comes in, that it has a meaningful connection to the community and to our campus. That's incredibly important. Everyone has to feel like they're welcome to the Widener, welcome to the arts. If we as artists make the arts exclusive, then we have to take part of the blame for this. And so I think to really work towards making sure that it's that we're really inviting and really open, and to understand how everyone can have access to the arts. And then finally, I think I'm really encouraged by what our arts programs are doing. So many great things, so many creative ideas and ways to provide students access to the arts in ways that are not traditionally sometimes done at universities. So really encouraged about the growth that we're doing, for example, in audio engineering. This is a great way to provide access to the arts and audio production. I guess I can't say the word engineering, but but audio production that we're working on. Very excited about what's going on there, and in all of our arts programs who are thinking about these in ways to create access, just like we're doing across the whole university, to all different groups. To all different socioeconomic classes. I think this is also really important that we continue to work that way.
Here's one that I don't think we've answered. If we get vaccinated, will we be required to test every 14 days, or will the testing be waived?
No, at the moment, if you get vaccinated, you will still be required to get the test.
And do you expect the current policies on working from home to continue for the entire spring semester?
Yes. You know, to be direct here, I also expect us to continue to have flexibility as we move forward past the pandemic. Okay, so the changes that we've made, and we've talked a lot about this, I know, but the changes that we've made and thinking about work-life balance and thinking about where you have to be to do your job, and providing as much flexibility for staff and faculty as we can. We want to continue those policies, and we'll work together to make sure that that happens.
Okay. And that is the last question in our inbox. I just want to encourage people. A couple might pop in later after we go off air, but I usually try to get those answered anonymously. So if you have any questions, just send them to the same coffeebreak@uwgb.edu. I think that's it for today.
Great, thanks, Sue, and thanks to Sue, who we never actually. I thank everybody. We never thank Sue for her work on these coffee breaks, and it's appreciated, the work that you do. And I will also just say, just quickly to wrap up today, that first of all, I want to thank you for spending some time with us this morning. I know how busy you are right before the semester starts, and appreciate everyone who took the time today to be with us. I know this is going to sound a little strange to say, but I know I often get accused of seeing the glass maybe not half full but overflowing. But I will say that I am so proud of the work that we did in the fall to complete what was a unbelievable semester to go through, and I think we're positioned very well to go through in the spring. And I don't want to discount the struggles that everyone has, but I urge you and ask you to try to find joy in your work, to try to find, to remember why we're here, and to really fight for the students that we are trying to educate. It's hard. I know the daily grind of everything external to the university and all of the internal pressures that we all have, to forget that, and just remember that the work that you do matters. And it matters in a profound way, and to keep doing it, and to remember that what you do, it matters to other people, and it matters to our region, and it matters beyond. It's clear, in my opinion, that that's the case. So thanks for all that you do. Our next coffee break will be on February 12th. And so appreciate again everyone's time today. I hope you have a wonderful start to the semester. And again, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to let us know. So have a great day.